Let me know if you can see the beat. Everyone, is my speakers on? All right.
Go up a little bit. There you go.
What's goody good? Part dos. Part dos. What are we talking about? My Florida CFO who? Jenny. So check this out. We already know. Can you imagine if you had to regulate the business of insurance? Crazy, right? I'm over here trying to regulate you guys with CE and I'm ready to jump off the freaking dock. Yeah, it's nuts. I'm not going to jump off anything high, okay? But look, I want to take you guys back a couple of years, right? Because I'm going to show you a little, I'm going to identify CFO authority. This dude has so much power. How much power does he have? Right? You heard that? He has so much power. How much power? Yo, this dude can't change the law, but he can propose them. I am only a bill, and I'm sitting on Capitol Hill. Yeah. That's right? Remember that? Schoolhouse Rock? What was Schoolhouse Rock about? It was about the federal government talking about how they can propose bills that become a law. Same thing in the state of Florida. We propose bills that become laws. CFO Jimmy Petronis is in charge of the entire business of insurance. He's head of the Department of Financial Services. 13 different divisions within the department. 6 of those divisions have something to do with the business of insurance. This guy is a member of the governor's cabinet and a member of the Financial Services Commission that oversees banks and lenders. Wow. A lot of responsibility, right? Well, in late January 2020, Chief Financial Officer Jimmy Petronis, head of the Department of Financial Services, along with Senator Tom Wright and Representative Chuck Clemens, announced a consumer protection bill focused on protecting Floridians, especially after a disaster. In a press release after the proposed legislation passed its first major hurdle, the CFO wanted to make it clear, with this bill, and it is only a bill, we're sending a message to insurance companies that if you're going to operate in the state of Florida, you must do what's right by your consumers, man. No longer should claim handling issues create delays as storm victims rebuild their homes and lives. This next part, it cracked me up. Why? I'm constantly saying things like this to my kids. Seriously, if the mic was on just now, I was like, with this bill, we're sending a message to insurance companies that you're going to be, oh man, I messed it up. I just jumped right back. This next part, it cracks me up. I'm constantly saying things like this to my kids. If my mic would have been on a minute ago, you'd have heard me. You'd be like, yo, Danger, how is it that you have 5 or 6 days worth of clothes in the bathroom? Right? Things like that. Anyway, I shouldn't have to step in and make sure insurance companies are doing what they should be doing for their consumers, right? I shouldn't have to come in here and tell you to pick your clothes up off the floor. Don't worry, this ain't about me though. But Jimmy goes on to acknowledge how the new legislation is only a step forward. If it's passed, the new consumer protection bill will force insurers to pay claims within 90 days. This change will refocus industry claim payment standards. In addition to the timely payment of claims, the bill also stiffens guidelines against who? Those terrorists, unauthorized entities who conduct the business of insurance without authorization, and it prohibits companies from using the word Medicare in their name. Why? Medicare is federally funded, okay? You run these boomers running around, they still got flip phones, okay? So can they verify certain things? They see, oh, Medicare agency, and they think that that's who they should be talking to. No more, none of that. Everything's got to be transparent here, right? Now, that was a long time ago. Let's fast forward. June 7th, 2022. CFO press release. Jimmy Petronis applauds Governor DeSantis for signing fraud prevention bill. Tallahassee. Today, Florida Chief Financial Officer Jimmy Petronis applauded Ron DeSantis for signing House Bill 749, fraud protection. The legislation provides various fraud protections for consumers, including provisions streamlining the cancellation of subscription services, the implementation of digital insurance cards, cracks down on unwanted telemarketing calls, and provides measures to hold unlicensed insurance adjusters accountable. CFO Petronas said, as a former small business owner myself, I worked every day as your CFO to ensure that consumers come first and consumers are protected. This legislation empowers Florida policyholders by creating digital insurance cards that will communicate with the digital driver's license and mandates that will be operational by 2023 on Florida roadways to create value for Florida drivers and reduce insurance fraud. Included in this bill are provisions that combat fraudulent and annoying telemarketing calls by requiring licensed warranty agencies and agents to identify their full business name and license number immediately, cracking down on the amount of illegitimate telemarketing calls. Look, there is no, hey, is David there? Dude, this is Jason Perez with the Central Florida Insurance School. We're talking about clear identification, none of that other crap. If you're getting those automated robocalls, they're illegal. Do not communicate with those people, right? He goes on to say, I also fought to include increased penalties on unlicensed public adjusters who break the law. In certain instances, following a storm, policy owners may contract with their own adjusters to assess damage. Too often, a bad adjuster that is unlicensed will take their money, run or lock the policyholder into a bad contract where they sign their rights away. That practice ends right now. Thank you to Governor Ron DeSantis for signing this legislation. It will go a long way in modernizing our Department of Financial Services statutes and giving the Florida consumer more control in preventing fraud. My thanks to Senator Gruder and Representative Chuck Clemens for taking on the challenge of passing these fraud protections and making Florida a safer place to do business. Senator Joe Gruder said, Thank you, Ron DeSantis, for signing this good bill into law, and CFO Petronas for his commitment to protecting Floridians. I was pleased to sponsor this piece of legislation that protects consumers from fraudulent activities. Representative Chuck Clemens says, I don't know what he represents, but I was pleased to sponsor this legislation to the Florida House and guide it to the governor's desk. This bill will hold big businesses accountable and keep fraudsters at bay. Thank you, CFO Petronas, for all your support and working to keep the state of Florida fiscally responsible to consumers. That was a CFO press release, right? Now, let's go fast forward, and I guess we fast forwarded because we started out in 2020, jumped to 2022, but now we're going to go back a couple of weeks. Why? Because, let's see here, on December 13th, we have another press release. Tuesday, December 13th, CFO Petronas testimony. We must put policyholders first, right? So in 2020, that bill that they proposed was looking to make sure that insurers paid claims within 90 days. Guys, we just went through a hellacious storm season, all right? Fort Myers was completely decimated. Well, let's check this out. Tallahassee today, Tuesday, December 13th. Florida Chief Financial Officer Jimmy Petronas delivered testimony to the Florida House Appropriations Committee during a special session in support of the legislative efforts to reform Florida's insurance industry. These CFO remarks were prepared for delivery, all right? I only grammatically corrected a couple of things here and there because for some reason the DFS can do all these things except not put a run-on sentence together, but you ain't hear that from me, you know what I'm saying? All right, so look, CFO goes on to say, I believe in a citizen-ran legislature. It means a lot for your constituents to know that you're on their side. Thanks to Governor DeSantis and the Florida legislature, our economy is exceptional. We've got nearly 900 people a day moving here, and they're bringing income with them. In total, that's about $23 billion in income coming into the state of Florida. Because you know if you move to the state of Florida, you get a special enrollment period. Yo, can I write that policy? Can I write that policy? So here he goes and starts talking about, oh, by the way, let's talk about some mad shade that they're throwing, right? He's over here talking about 23 billion in income coming to Florida. Contrast that with California. California knows how to party. That's where they lost 18 billion in income leaving their state. What? So what they're trying to tell you, you can go vacation in California when it ain't closed, but you damn sure don't want to live there. Woo! But tackling what this whole thing is about is, once again, property and casualty, right? We just went through some storms. I know that this is a life class. I know that some of you guys are a health license, and we're not even talking about property and casualty, but this is CFO responsibilities. And if you live in Florida, these are things that affect you as a consumer. The chief financial officer in my Florida CFO not only has tools for you for life, health, annuity, long-term care, Medicare supplement, and who knows what else. But if you're a homeowner, manage the storm, people. Understand how to protect yourself. So with this, the reason that they're driving down onto property and casualty is that this last storm, geez, I don't know if it's in here, but the numbers on what it cost. I know that storm that hit couple of years back, the Panhandle, it was something like $7 billion in damage. And the way it works out is that if insurance companies can't get that money to the community, that $7 billion in damage starts rolling and snowballing, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because if the businesses don't open, the money doesn't come back, okay? So that's why they were constantly talking about property and casualty. Now, this special session was so important, and the discussion is all about putting policyholders first. This bill puts policyholders first for 3 reasons. First, it fixes Florida's legal environment by eliminating one-way attorney fees. I'm sure you heard this stat a million times. Florida makes up 9% of the nation's claims, but we have 79% of the nation's lawsuits. What? You can't have a normal, healthy, functioning insurance market with numbers like that, all right? The legal costs are all passed on to you and me, the consumer, and it makes it harder for some of the insurers to come into town and stay in business because they got to drive these prices up. We see the news articles all, oh, you got to do something about stopping the rising insurance premiums. Come on. It's a reflection of the marketplace. Fraud and storms. Come on, man. That's a perfect storm. So, stop it. COVID season's over. I was just clearing my throat, okay? Karen. All right. Anyway, 79% of the lawsuits, right? You can't have a healthy economy, can't have a healthy industry with those kind of numbers. Second, this bill puts policyholders first by forcing insurance companies to be more responsive to claims. I've been through enough storms to know that when a policy owner's home has been ravaged, time is everything. Do you remember in 2020, they were talking about making sure that claims were paid within 90 days? Check this out. 2 years later, they're now putting a new bill out that reduces that timetable from 90 days down to 60 days. I like it. I like it. This bill also forces a physical inspection within 30 days and requires that the adjuster send the policyholder the report within 7. Ultimately, these provisions, which provide, right, provisions provide, they work together to empower policyholders. So that way, if an insurer is not taking a claim seriously, the OIR has more teeth to issue fines and hold the insurers accountable. I do want to point out there, when you see that, these provisions empower policyholders. Remember, provisions provide. Riders cost. Provisions identify your rights. The third way this bill puts policyholders first is by fighting fraud. There's a lot of drivers for why we're seeing premium increases. I brought up the litigation, inflation, of course, storms, of course, reinsurance rates. We haven't even got to that, but I hope you know what reinsurance is. Those are the insurance companies who insure the insurers. Did you know in the state of Florida that even if you signed with, like, let's just say, I don't know, State Farm for your house, they have to offset some of the risk of your house, which means that they sell a portion of your policy. They have to go through underwriting and another company picks up the slack. Why? Because imagine if one insurance company insured all of Fort Myers. Wouldn't they have gone out of business? Yeah, reinsurance. It basically helps make sure that one insurance company isn't caught holding the bag for your entire debt. So let's see here. Now, one of the things that they're going to talk about is assignment of benefits, right? So with this, the third part of this bill, the way it helps fight fraud is by basically giving the office a little bit more power to fight fraud. See, he goes on to say, I got 125 sworn law enforcement officers, right? Remember, sworn law enforcement, you cannot send an investigator to go look after a Florida man who committed a felony and think you might not get shot at, right? These people shoot for the dumbest reasons. Regardless, 125 sworn law enforcement officers at my agency who investigate all types of insurance fraud. There are a lot of great provisions in these bills, but I want to focus on where we see a lot of fraud driving up costs. Florida needs to empower policyholders, and that means eliminating assignment of benefits, otherwise known as AOBs. That's all of basically assignment of benefits has to do with your house, getting your house repaired after a storm. They're supposed to let the policyholder hand over the claim to the contractor. You're assigning the benefits to the contractor who's doing the work so that way they can get the money to replace the house, right? But unfortunately, it's generating a lot of problems. The cost, it's enriching people other than the homeowner because all of a sudden these extra costs are being pushed in. It's like that old school joke up in New York, right? They're like, you got these three contractors. First contractor comes in and says, hey, I'll do this job for you for $400. Oh, that's great. Second contractor comes in and says, hey, I'll do this job for you for $600. The third contractor comes in and says, hey, I'll do this job for $3,000. Right? Why? Because he's going to get the job done super quick. We're going to hire those first two contractors for $1,000 combined, get them to do the work, $1,000 for you, $1,000 for me. That's what it looks like when they're doing the AOBs. It's like a union conversation with a bunch of New Yorkers over here, right? So, look, it doesn't make life easier. It's passing costs down. It's costing us higher premiums. And what they want to do is they want to get rid of this assignment of benefits completely, okay? Really, these companies are coming around after a storm. This is when everybody's the most stressed out. It's when they're most vulnerable. Then you got somebody coming up like after Hurricane Michael and Ian, right? Roof is gone, there's water in their home. Somebody comes up with a tank of gas, some storm supplies, promising to help to get them back on their feet. And what happens? A couple of moments later, we got 300, 400,000 more being assigned off to a contractor they just met. Now, the fact is, when policy owners sign their claims away, they're no longer in the driver's seat. By eliminating this whole option, this assignment of benefits, the legislature now has an opportunity to cut out the middleman. And if the policy owner runs into any issues, they could just call the Department of Financial Services. They can mediate the issue, or you can hire an attorney. Now, removing assignment of benefits would remove a lot of fraud from Florida's insurance marketplace, which is a major driver of cost. Right here, they throw an example out. Strem's Law Firm, not even like some suspect contractor. It's a law firm. Okay, they used assignment of benefits to defraud Citizens Insurance Company of $112 million. They filed $5,000 claims, 5,000 claims, and used the assignment of benefits as the main tool. Now, the CFO talks about it took his law enforcement a full sting operation. They coordinated with citizens, and they were able to stop them left in their tracks. But if they left it unchecked, this could have been like $16 million a year in permanent premium costs going up in the state of Florida. In Florida, assignment benefits, they say they just muddy the water because it's putting layers between the policy owner and the company that they're assigning the benefits to, when really this should be something between the policy owner and the insurer, right? Look, he says this all the time. There are good lawyers, there's good contractors, good public adjusters, but there's bad ones also. It's the law of large numbers, baby. It's time to cut bait and put an end to these abuses by banning AOBs, assignment of benefits, within the property casualty market. Look, here with those three press releases, what we're seeing that the CFO has the ability to make adjustments. 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, they're proposing a bill to make sure that claims are paid within 90 days. Since then, we had a couple of different storms come through. The litigation has gone through the roof in the state of Florida. Fraud has gone through the roof, no pun intended. But it's really, in a lot of instances, it's not the homeowner. It's the adjusters who are coming in, coaching the homeowner on how to do things illegal, but the homeowner doesn't know what's going on. They're just trying to not be rained on while they're sleeping on their Tempur-Pedic. You know what I'm saying? So here, with these press releases, what we're seeing is that in 2020, we identified a problem. In 2022, these bills were signed. They were like, the enhancements on them were signed, right? Not even those old doo-doo versions, new versions were brought in. And now, just the other day, where are we at? We're trying to make it faster for people to go ahead and get their money in a moment of need, trying to eliminate unscrupulous middlemen. Get them out of the way. All they do is slow down the process. So, in that, what you're seeing, quasi-legislative power. Legislative means that you're making rules. That's your rule-making authority. It's really easy to remember because it's either legislative or judicial, and judicial just sounds like a court, right? That would be that consent order that we talked about. They can bypass the court. He can hold a hearing. Cannot send you to jail, though. Can only get you to pay restitution or, They can pay restitution. They can take your license. All of those things. Just cannot impose jail time. Now, with legislative powers, it's the same thing. They can propose bills to close, to fix problems within the industry. But, they can't, they don't just put a law into place. That law still has to be voted on. So the CFO has judicial powers because he can hold hearings and issue consent orders. It has quasi-legislative powers to propose bills. That was 22 minutes, but that fixed the problem. So now we just got to figure out how to edit it, and I think we went into it. So now those are all three together on this last doc.